Welcome to the Irish Tech News podcast, where we will bring you some of the most interesting interviews and features from the world of tech. Visit irishtechnews.ie and check out our podcast section to explore all of our previous episodes. You can subscribe to our podcast using whatever your favourite app or service is by visiting anchor.fm/Irish-tech-news. And now, a word from our sponsor, Agora Pulse. We know how hard it is to juggle all the things in your business. Accounts, meetings, the never-ending inbox. That's why we've teamed up with Agora Pulse to give you more than 5 hours back a week when it comes to managing your social media marketing. No complicated Excel docs, long emails, or millions of open tabs. Simply manage all your social media channels in one place. Go to www.agorapulse.com/Irish Tech News to get 1 month free. Now all you have to do is figure out how you want to spend those spare 5 hours.
Hello and welcome to the Irish Tech News podcast. My name is Melanie Boylan and today I'm here with Elma Begonovich, the co-founder and COO of A&E Digital Agency. Welcome, Elma.
Thank you, Melanie, so much for having me.
I'm delighted to have you here. Now, your success is quite well known. You're here today to speak about influencer marketing and how you run your business. Do tell us a little bit about A&E Digital Agency and how yourself and your sister set up in business, please.
Sure. So we began, this was actually late 2012, before Facebook pages even existed. If you can believe that, the world before Facebook pages. But we began essentially as influencers. We didn't know, where social media at the time was going, and basically all the different technologies that were going to develop down the road, and how social media and influencer marketing would explode for businesses. So essentially, we started getting approached by clients who were working with as influencers, and they said, can you basically replicate your success model that you've achieved on social media? So essentially the following, the engagement, with us. So what we didn't know at the time, we were basically consenting to becoming a digital agency. So this is how we started. We started, social media, growing our clients' accounts, and then essentially expanded into, everything digital, from content production, so video and photography, and then other content formats, and then also influencer marketing that obviously exploded. So we also went into that route.
So you have quite a large team then, if you're dealing with all those other aspects as well.
Yes, that's right. So we have, we have obviously a business development team, and then we have our, web development team. We're also ranking. That's something that we offer, number one on Google. So for, variety of competitive keywords. And so we're able to do that for our clients as well. So that obviously, helps to save a lot in terms of the, PPC. So Google AdWords, essentially, you can basically either supplement it or replace it by, organic search results, which we specialize getting, our clients number one in. And it's so business development, our web development, we have social media management team, and then influencer outreach team. And a publicist as well.
Okay, so quite the team then. So you were actually doing this before it became a thing.
Right. That's exactly. I think, like I said, I don't think at the time, this was again late 2012, anyone knew, or even 2013 and 14, how huge social media was going to become. I mean, now we've seen everything, from politics to the pandemic, right? So you have, influencer marketing sort of permeating into all these different industries and spheres, from nonprofits to politics to health. It just, it exploded, and essentially so did our business, especially now as well during the pandemic when, consumers have turned to online shopping.
So can literally any business at all, build on your influence for their business?
Yes. So that's exactly right. It's really across industries. I mean, our clients, they've ranged from, for example, EssilorLuxottica, and Essilor specifically specializes in lenses, to, you've had your Huawei, so telecom, to, beauty like Procter and Gamble's Olay. And it's really, I think that businesses of all sizes, and then also across a variety of industries, even in B2B marketing, which has been interesting, they've found influencer marketing and social media very helpful to them.
So can you help people become their own influencer as well, as not just, working across your brand?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So yeah, we can help them become their own influencer. So sort of for, whether you're a personal brand or whether you are, a brand that's, essentially just represents, a set of products or quality and trust. We do work on branding, and, from catering your brand persona to content to strategy, and then also growing your following, again, depending on, what kind of target demographic you want to address.
And the offering, I suppose, it depends on their offering as well.
Yes, yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. It depends on what, what you're trying to sell and who you're trying to target.
So people can literally come away from this being their own influencer. That's really valuable. So I hope you don't mind me going down to the nitty gritty here, but how much does influencer marketing cost today?
Sure, sure. So it really depends. It's sort of, there's sort of like shopping for a car, like to use the analogy, you have your, Fords, basically, kind of the more affordable versions, to you have your Ferraris. So it depends essentially, when you look at influencers, you look at their following, obviously. You also look at their reputation, because sometimes they have a stellar reputation, but they may not be as big, just because the industry that they're addressing is not as large. It's basically a niche that they're focused on. So somebody who's focused on a very particular segment of an industry can be a lot more influential and actually a lot more affordable than somebody who is a huge influencers, but they're sort of followed just for their notoriety. So yeah, influencer marketing can cost you anywhere, if you're doing just gifting, for example, if it's consumer products and you're just doing gifting. So you'd essentially have to pay for your PR team, who's doing all the coordination with the influencers, and then obviously searching for them, to basically advertising. And so it could be from something like $5,000 a month for just PR, if you're doing PR efforts and massively gifting, to you could obviously go into hundreds of thousands of dollars if you are engaging basically celebrity influencers. And again, it could go even more than that, depending on the scope of work. Are you doing some sort of exclusive line with them, and copyright, usage rights? So it really depends on the scope of work, but essentially it's there's something for business of every size.
So that's the tough part with influencer marketing, though, isn't it? You can gain an awful lot of influence and followers and attraction, but how do you keep that audience engaged?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things, and we often discuss, about this with our clients, is that you have to have a very good content strategy. So basically, when we go back to now, earlier to our conversation about branding. So you have to really understand your own brand, again, whether it's a personal brand or whether it's a product brand or a service brand. And then, you have to line out basically an outline of a strategy and stick to that persona. So essentially you become recognizable, right, on social media, and people start to follow you for one particular, whether that's health and wellness, or whether that is, fitness or beauty, or, another tech industry, or if you're a doctor, influencers as well. So, whatever industry that you're representing, that you really think about your content strategy. And it's okay to mess up. I always say that the point is to begin somewhere, and you will, and you should, improve upon your content as you progress in your strategy and your persona. So, but yeah, the point is to begin somewhere. And the point is obviously also to have some sort of persona and branding and who you are outlined in the beginning.
So when you've actually helped somebody set up, how quickly, or I don't suppose you can promise this actually, but how quickly could you help them build up their influence? Is it months, or is it a whole year sort of strategy?
Yeah, so it's an ongoing strategy, definitely. So yeah, it takes months to form a good following. But the great thing is that, these followers, once you earn them, they're there, forever yours, if you will. And, so long as, again, I will go back to that, your content strategy. So you can't just start out, for example, as, as a doctor influencer, and then, go into fashion. It just doesn't, you can't, start giving health advice and then go into another. So you kind of have to stick to the, the area. You can expand on that area, but still make it applicable to your early followers. But yes, it takes, I don't think there's anything as such as, overnight success to build, a brand. But I think it's, you see the results when we start working, with a brand. You see the results right away because you see the followers, you see the comments and the engagement, and then, obviously builds from there.
Is there anything, is the comment, there's no such thing as bad PR? Is that true?
I think, in terms of, depends what, if you're maybe a personal brand, that could be the case. But in terms of product or service, you obviously don't want your reputation tainted, so people stop purchasing your products or using your services. So you want to maintain, obviously, a reputation. And if they are, basically, complaints or concerns, that, social media is great in that aspect. It's not a one-way conversation, that you can address all the time the concerns, of your followers and of the basically feedback that, your audience is giving you.
Yeah, that's a good answer. What I had in mind actually is there can be scammers out there that will make claims just to, besmirch the brand. I mean, how do you, as an influencer, how do you deal with somebody who makes those claims? Because you can't outright call them out, can you?
Yeah. So if, you're talking about if someone in the comment section makes claims about a brand.
Yeah.
I think, they can, it can be a good thing as well, because again, you're able to, as a brand, respond, and then you're also able to have other people weigh in on it. So you'll literally see, if you scroll down or you click on, for example, on Instagram on replies, you'll see people going back and forth, and they will actually call the others on the false claim. So in that sense, it's pretty good. I think social media, that it can be self-policing in the sense that, the other audience can counter what they're saying. So if there's, if there's one basically outlier of a comment, it kind of corrects itself, because people who are looking at that, they look at, the overall basically tone beneath the post and what the overall sentiment. So if obviously every single, one of the comments says the same thing, that you as a brand should be, concerned, and it's a red flag. But if it's just an outlier, and then there will be, again, others that will counter that and say, well, I didn't have that experience. So in that sense, I think again, like self-policing, it can be a pretty good tool.
Now, we have been referring a lot, haven't we, to the social media, digital media aspect of things, but influencer marketing isn't just in that sphere. Do you manage other aspects as well?
Yes. So influencer marketing, it's become quite expansive. There's side, for example, to influencer partnerships, where, for example, if you're a fashion brand, you want to form, exclusive collection with one influencer or a group of influencers, and you want them to, for example, design, like 6 pieces and then sell them on your e-commerce site. That can be quite useful. And then they can promote that line with their followers. So it doesn't just necessarily, translate just to social media, but it can basically be, it's like, well, once upon a time where radio DJs, influencers have become that. So there's sort of like your third party, endorsement of the brand. And they can also, it doesn't obviously, like we mentioned earlier, just go to fashion. It can be, for example, also, if you're a vitamins brand and you want to, form a partnership with an influencer, and they have a namesake brand under your brand, and then, they can also sell your product essentially on their website, so on their blogs. And now it's obviously easy to do with all the online tools available. Set up your own e-commerce shop. So influencers can, they obviously make a commission from that, and then they will, obviously advertise on their social media too for their followers to buy the product. So for example, like they could be, vitamins, they could be, like powders, like protein shakes or some other, superfoods. So yeah, it really translates, I think, into all different areas, and how you form the partnerships. You can get very creative about it.
Do you think, in your experience, which is lengthy, people are relying too much on social media as the only form of influencer marketing? Because in my shorter experience, I find that people just think that is marketing, whereas I personally still feel there's a place for traditional marketing, press releases, podcasts, television appearances.
Right. I do think, there's, it's kind of, it's basically expanded. So marketing is basically wherever eyeballs are, right? So for example, when we worked with Procter and Gamble, they did, Olay did this sort of show. This was pre-pandemic. Did a Broadway show where it was basically just, a show about their products. And it was, sort of a comedy. It was quite funny. But the audience showed up, and there was basically a musical about Olay products, and people loved it. The tickets were sold out. So, but yeah, essentially wherever the eyeballs are, that is marketing. So social media obviously is a big part of that, and then influencer marketing, like you said, it's not only relevant to social media. For example, there's now Amazon also has Amazon Live.
Of course, yeah.
So it's basically like QVC, sort of what once was QVC, but now it's for younger audience. And on Amazon Live, you see influencers that are hired by brands that are selling products, and then the audience can shop from. So yeah, it's just, there's all kinds of, and podcasts are amazing, and I know a lot of millennials really tune into podcasts. And yeah, it's different basically channels, but in essence, for every brand, it's important that you understand how your marketing comes together. So basically have an integrated approach.
And that was just the greatest segue. That was just great. It's like you could read what was going through my mind. So can you give us some tips to create a profitable influencer marketing campaign? Just some free giveaways for us.
Sure. So a profitable influencer marketing campaign, I think it's really important. A lot of people will, jump into this, especially that are, new to the industry, and say, well, I'm just going to hire an intern or, someone fresh out of college. And the fact is, technology has developed so much. It's, it's really, really gone deep that you can, it's no longer prudent to do that. Mm-hmm. So, suggest working with a professional, essentially. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go out and, hire, a team right away. But, even somebody that, part-time, an agency, and limit their scope of work with, what you're doing with them. So you start out small, it's okay. But basically, to, get your feet wet, if you will, and then you can expand from there, and obviously see what works for your business and what doesn't work. I think definitely a tip is work with professionals and set out a strategy that makes sense for your business, and start out there, and then see, be very insistent on, that's also important when you work with agencies, on deliverables. What are they delivering to you? How many influencers and what kind of, results to expect? What are some of your goals? And that's okay. And you should set those up.
Okay, so it's not actually as hard as it sounds. It's just being strategic, prepared, and I'm not afraid to hand over some of the control.
Right. That's exactly right. So, obviously everyone has a lot on their plates and what they're handling. So you want to make sure that, again, and it's okay, you will see, start out small. That's, the point is to start somewhere, and start out small and see how it's working for you, whether, you're working with a professional, whether you're working with an agency, and, have, maybe start out with a few micro influencers and see how that's going. Start out with gifting, So set out some sort of plan and start there, and then you can grow from there and you can adjust from there.
I agree about the young ones, as we call them over here in Ireland. They may be well informed, some of them even qualified, because they would have left university with degrees and diplomas and all sorts, but they don't necessarily have the business ethos, the mindset from the get-go. So I agree bringing those types of people onto your team, but to sort of embrace them in educating them first before letting them loose on your platforms.
Right. I think it's about essentially, one is, nothing substitutes experience.
No.
And the other, and then the other part of it is also maturity, obviously, because, at the end of the day, they are marketing dollars. So you want to make sure they're wisely spent. And, having an adult in the room makes all the difference. And not to mention, obviously, an adult with experience. So you need somebody a person or an agency who's very well informed and who can present to you a variety of options in terms of, what's viable for your business and what's a smart strategy for your business. So to present a set of options, and then, you would choose whatever's the most priority. For example, is it your priority to rank number one on Google, or is your priority to grow a social media following because one of your distributors looks at that? For example, Sephora or Walmart will look at the amount of followers you have or influencers that you're working with. So you need to put basically what your priorities are, or is it content? Are you really dependent on great content? For example, the beauty industry is content reliant. So lay out your priorities and then talk with somebody and see what they their suggestions and where to start.
Yeah, no, I like that. And the other thing is a lot of smaller businesses, although they may have goals, they don't have sales funnels.
Right.
That really bothers me. And they don't really realize how important a sales funnel is. They know they have to get eyeballs, and then but it's calls to action as well, isn't it?
Right. That's exactly right. So I think, for example, and this is what, again, like a professional or an agency, they should know, and they should be able to discuss with you. Now you're able to it can be your e-commerce site, or it can even be your Instagram account. So on your Instagram account, you're able to set up your own shop.
Yep.
So now consumers can directly shop from Instagram. So if you can grow your following and you have somebody on your team who, whether in-house or outsource, who can grow your following, those now followers can become, your buyers, your consumers. And then all of a sudden you're every day in their, feed. When they open up their Instagram accounts, they can see you and your product. So again, keeping in line with the smart strategy. And you have to keep in mind, obviously, anything that's, done well, it takes time. So don't jump into this and hire one influencer and decide whether it's right or not for you. So have patience, start small, and then, grow basically as you see what's working for you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. These things just don't happen overnight. You need to sort of re-educate your audience and build on the audience you already have, and then increase it.
Right.
So yeah, that's very, very good tips. Thank you. Now, one thing that I wanted to ask you before we finish up was this rise of patient and doctor influencers. I'd love to hear more about this.
Yeah, this has been quite a fascinating field because, when we started, there was basically like 5 influencers, and they did like travel, lifestyle, which included fashion, included, recipes. So just a wide array of subjects. And now it's gone so far as to, during the pandemic, you'd had basically a rise of doctor influencers. So if you go on YouTube, you will see different doctors who are, giving obviously qualified to give medical advice, and some of them, do it quite in an entertaining way. So that's been great because there's been so much misinformation on the internet about, different, whether it's during the pandemic, how to, as simple as wash your hands or hygiene and, wearing masks and so forth, to also patient influencers. So they're basically people who, are letting the followers in on their journey. They're, struggling with certain, whether it's chronic illnesses or, other health issues. So they're sharing their journeys, and that's also obviously become very powerful because, people that are watching, they're sympathetic, they can relate, whether, it's something that themselves are going through or their loved ones. So that's obviously also been very informative.
It's
And
very confronting as well to share that kind of journey.
yeah, very confronting. And I think, it's been also rewarding on both ends. It's been rewarding for people to hear other people's experiences. It's sort of like support groups, virtual support groups. And, if you scroll to the comment section, you see people who, again, either their loved ones or or their friends, or, they themselves have gone through a certain journey and they find a lot of comfort there, or other people who are just, fans of, they deem them very, courageous for having come out and share this difficult journey. So yeah, it's been, I think the field has changed a lot, to say the least. Again, it started from beauty tutorials to, like politics and addressing heavy duty, illnesses and, chronic diseases. And then as well, like doctors coming in and, making certain, like whether, there's a doctor on Instagram during the pandemic exploded, and he was basically like, he plays the piano and he sings, and then he had other, doctors kind of come in, and he was essentially featured on ABC. But yeah, and people have, obviously during the pandemic found it very helpful and comforting. So to know who's obviously like, who's working, in the front lines. So yeah, it's been it's been quite fascinating. Basically, whatever you're looking for, it's out there. Whatever industry, whatever niche you're specialized in, it's there. So I would say, whoever you're working with, make sure that they know what they're doing, and they won't be afraid, getting, whether it's an agency or a person, to roll up their sleeves and really know the industry and dig deep, because again, there's so much in every industry that's available out there, and it's available to anybody, business of any size, at any stage. So yeah, it's at your fingertips.
And you don't have to be particularly talented like this doctor apparently was, or particularly attractive or even quirky. You just need to be good at what you do.
Yes, that's exactly right. I think, with influencers, and that's sort of been like a breath of fresh air, is this was more relatable, because where, the mainstream media went was sort of in this direction where, people couldn't relate to others who were spending, thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars on, plastic surgery or skincare. Is just normal people that wasn't, part of their everyday life.
No.
So this was sort of like prettier version of everyday. And it was, still entertaining. And I think people really, it was something to entertain yourself with, and also find some sort of, escapism and inspiration within.
Actually, just one last question before we finish up. You've been in this industry for a few years now, so have you found authenticity has actually been better for selling these days than doing the old Insta life?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, we've been like now nearly a decade, which is interesting to think of this field and how old it is. Yeah, I think authenticity actually is goes a very long way. So, even this content that's not, extremely edited, goes viral essentially because, people, again, it's relatable and people can really see themselves, and it's digestible in it. And it's sort of, it's become fun content where during the day you're, everyone's taking a break and looking at their phones. And you find this content that, that's either, funny, or it's informational, or it's inspirational. So yeah, I think it's become fascinating because essentially influencers have become like mini production houses. They can, obviously you have like Warner Brothers, and you have other large studios, and they're basically doing everything on their own. Maybe they probably have like one other person who's a photographer or videography working with them, but they're, producing all this content on their own. So you can certainly gain the appreciation, and you can see obviously the low cost production, but nonetheless, it's still extremely entertaining and very genuine.
Cool. No, thank you. I just thought I'd ask. So Elma, please tell us how we can learn more about yourself and your business. Where do we look?
Yeah, so absolutely. So you can, look on our website. So it's amraandelma.com, and I'm sure Melanie, you will put, down so people can click on it as well.
Yep.
So there's again amraandelma.com, and our email's right on the website. You can get in touch with us. Our services are there, and our case studies portfolio. So yeah, take a look, and and our press as well, and hopefully you can learn something from it too.
Well, it was fantastic that you gave us an insight on what difference digital, influencer marketing can have, and the tips were really helpful as well. Thank you so much for talking to us today, Elma. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. It was a great conversation for me too.
Well, that's all for now, but we'll be back very soon with another podcast.
Thank you for listening to the latest Irish Tech News podcast. Check back every day for the latest episode. You can follow us on Twitter @Irish_Tech News, on Facebook, facebook.com/Irish Tech News, on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Irish-Tech-News, on Instagram, instagram.com/Irish Tech News.ie, and on TikTok, tiktok.com/@Irish Tech News.